channel. This is That's Kenny. I have another pharmacy tech video today. Today we're going to be talking about different pharmacy settings. I've had the chance to work in several different pharmacies, compounding, infusion, hospital, and retail. So I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of understanding of the differences between them. So if you're interested, feel free to keep watching. So before we get into it, guys, I want to make sure if you're new, make sure to subscribe. And if you hadn't seen all my other pharmacy tech videos, make sure to check them out here. So the first one we're going to get into is going to be my love, which is retail. I started being a retail pharmacy tech in 2016. So here are a few things that you would typically see in this setting. This is a kind of a strenuous job. More than likely you're going to be standing up all day because this is in a setting to where you're going to be having to sit. So you're going to be standing up all day. Counting pills is a thing, especially if you're in a small pharmacy. You have to be comfortable with being able to count to 360 within a few minutes, less than a few minutes. In this job, insurance billing is a big thing. Typically, we are right in front of the customer. We solve all issues. The pharmacist is just typically the third check, or you see a divide between pharmacist duties and technician duties. And technician duties are like all the back end work, insurance, making sure the pills are counted, making sure stocking is done, making sure that the customers are happy, blase, blase, blase. The pharmacist is there just to make sure that all of it looks put together and that before we put it out into the world, it is correct. So retail is a great opportunity for somebody that is just getting started, but I loved it simply because if you are with a company like Walgreens, Walmart, or CVS, typically there are a lot of career opportunities because pharmacy technicians, they do a lot of different duties and have tons of different responsibilities. Now, if you are not a customer service person, retail probably wouldn't be your best option. You are going to be talking to patients, grabbing things from people like insurance cards, ID. You have to be a personable person, understand that all different personalities are going to be coming in. Especially you have to understand that people are sick and that more than likely if they're coming to see you, this is one thing I used to tell all my techs, if they're coming to see you, they're probably not having the best day. So being in pharmacy, one thing in retail, you just want to make sure that you have a good attitude, and having a good attitude, being a go-getter and being able to take direction well, retail is going to be a good option for you. Last thing that I would like to mention about retail is a perfect example to figure out if you like pharmacy. I wouldn't say to write off pharmacy completely if you don't like retail, but it kind of gives you a gist, kind of gives you the understanding of all the back end stuff like insurance, kind of lets you be able to be personable with people and then also be able to multitask while counting medicines and all that stuff. So retail is a great option for people that are wanting to kind of figure out, would this be a good option for me? So next type of pharmacy setting is hospital. Hospital is a little bit different. Typically, the pharmacies are tucked away. They're tucked away in the hospital because, of course, you don't want the patients to know where the pharmacy is at because that's where all the good stuff is. But typically, a few things that you will see that are done by hospital pharmacy techs are going to be being able to do IV infusions. That takes a little bit of experience, but the nice thing about hospital is that I've seen beginners and I've seen experienced techs have great careers there. This is kind of like an in-between setting to where sometimes if you can get the chance to be able to be hired on at a hospital without any experience, it's a great way for you to be able to kind of understand the concept of making the hospital run, because all the hospital the hospital has to have drugs, and we are the people that are kind of keeping it all together. Now, for experienced techs, it's great if you're kind of coming from retail or if you're coming from compounding, because this here is more streamlined. Some people really like hospital because they have tons of shifts. Hospitals never close. So you can work overnight, you can work early morning. There's tons of shifts. Now, one thing that I will recommend, just from something that I have seen, typically if you start at a pharmacy, if you start at a hospital, you're going to start with night shift. So that's one thing that you may want to look into. if you are looking at a hospital. Versus retail, depending on where you live, I know here in Alabama there are no 24-hour CVS's, which is where I used to work. So that means the latest I was going to work was midnight, and you know, I'm okay with that versus having to think about working 24 hours. But some people love working hospital because that works with their schedule, that works with their you know, family lifestyle. Now, I believe hospital, in my recommendation, I believe hospital is a little bit more laid back. It's for people that kind of like customer service, but they were tired of like the nitpickiness of having to make sure they do everything at a quick time, and you know, multitasking, all that stuff. In the hospital setting, it's a little bit more laid back, which is really nice, because it allows you to learn, especially if you're working at a smaller hospital. One responsibility that you typically more than likely will have is filling the Pyxis machines. The Pyxis machines are just machines where the nurses go to get medicines. So you have to be accountable, you have to be trustworthy, because you are dealing with medicines, you are walking through the halls of the hospital with medicines on you, and you have to make sure that they are put into the Pyxis machine accurately. So attention to detail and being accurate, and then trustworthiness is a big thing. If you're not a big customer service person, that's perfectly okay. One thing that you will do is you will have to learn how to communicate, even in high stress situations. Typically, the communication that you're going to be having is going to be with nurses or doctors. You're really not going to be communicating with patients because there's really no need for you to, but with having to communicate with other medical professionals, you have to understand that some people are kind of rough on their edges. There may not be the nicest, but it's just the job. So if you're sensitive, this may not be the option for you. But so now let's kind of go on to another type of setting. This is more compounding or solely infusion. Now, I've worked in both. The job that I am going to be starting here soon is a natural pharmacy where it's compounding, where we make all the medication. We make pills, capsules, lollipops, troches, all that stuff, which is great. So this is great for an experienced tech, especially if you're wanting something new. Now, it is a little bit slower, so typically you see a lot of older seasoned techs because they have a really great attention to detail. Now, I didn't have a good attention to detail until I transitioned to this setting, because in retail, in hospital, sometimes you're on autopilot, especially if you're not actually in the IV room at the hospital. So you get used to doing the same things all the time. Now, with compounding and infusion, that is not the case. Infusion, like I worked at an oncology center, that was all chemo drugs. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. You really don't have anybody over you. You get trained, but it's kind of like a throw in the fire type thing depending on the setting. One thing that I would definitely recommend is, just like I said with the hospital, you want to have tough skin because they're wanting somebody that has a little experience, because the job itself is so daunting. You're definitely using your mind a lot. You're doing a lot of math. You're making different ratios, different proportions, all that stuff. So that's all fun. One thing that I would definitely look into if you ever get a job opportunity, in your interview, one thing I would recommend is to ask about how do they train. I have been in a job setting, training was atrocious, and it made the job that much harder. So I would definitely ask about training if you're thinking about doing compounding or IV. If they're a type of environment where you're kind of throwing you in the fire, that may be something you want to think about, because if you don't have that much experience doing IV or compounding, you want to make sure that the company you're going to work for is going to give you a little grace. And unfortunately, sometimes in the medical field, that's just not the option. Another thing that I would like to mention about this different setting, that typically you work with yourself. You're kind of in your own little thing. You are doing your own little thing. So focusing is a big thing. Having conversations with tons of people is not something that's ideal, because they only typically have a few techs working, and most of everybody is working on something that requires a lot of attention. So if you like to be able to talk at work, and if you like to be able to kumbaya and take a lot of breaks, all that stuff, this may not be the one for you. But it is very rewarding because you are literally curating, like you're creating something, rather it be a chemo bag or rather it be a capsule or a lollipop. It's like you made it yourself. So it's very rewarding in that sense. Hopefully that kind of gave you an idea of all three of the different settings. Feel free to ask me any questions because I would love to go into more detail. I'm giving generalized info on a lot of pharmacy until I figure out what you guys want. So make sure to comment down below. If you guys haven't subscribed, please do so and share it with a friend. I love doing these videos for you guys. If you hadn't already known, I have been a pharmacy tech for the last 5 years. I've worked my worked my way up the ladder, and I have worked at different pharmacies. So even though it's only been a small amount of time, I promise you, if you keep your head in the game and if you stay focused, you can definitely make a great career out of being a pharmacy tech. Hopefully you guys love this video and it was informational. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Bye.